Ваше превосходительство, уважаемые коллеги, обращаюсь сейчас к профессорам, преподавателям нашего университета, дорогие студенты, дорогие стажеры. Мы собрались здесь сейчас для того, чтобы выслушать лекцию и обсудить лекцию, посвященную истории и культуре Перу. Ее прочтет Хуан дель Кампо, чрезвычайно полномочный посол Республики Перу в нашей стране. Я хотел бы, приветствуя от имени ректора университета, от имени ученого совета, нашего уважаемого гостя, отметить два важных момента. Первый из них заключен в том, что университет является той платформой, тем форумом, где чрезвычайно важно слышать, и не только слушать, а именно слышать разные точки зрения. Поэтому опыт Перу, опыт другого мира чрезвычайно важен для того, чтобы выверить часы, для того, чтобы использовать опыт и достижения для развития нашей собственной страны, для развития нашего города. Это очень важный момент, диалог культур, проникновение разных образов и символов, использование истории разных народов для развития и для благополучия собственной страны. Очень важная особенность университета как институции. Сейчас я понял, что нужно дать время переводчику для перевода.
Dear guests, we are glad to welcome you here at our university. We will have a lecture devoted to the history and culture of Peru, and I'm glad to welcome you on behalf of our rector of our university. Our university is a platform which is important for the exchange of experience, of information on different cultures. This lecture will allow us to compare notes on different cultures, on different histories, and the dialogue of culture will be useful for our country as well.
И очень важно, второй момент, который хотел подчеркнуть, мне кажется, для студентов, для студенчества, и мне очень приятно, что здесь присутствуют представители разных университетов, представители стажировки правительства Москвы. Для нас это очень важный проект, для нашего университета тоже. Так вот, на студенческой скамье очень важно увидеть опыт другого, успешного человека. Когда я говорю о государственных служащих, когда я говорю о чрезвычайных и полномочных послах, мне кажется, это очень важно понять, как устроен мир вот этой профессиональной деятельности, как выстраивается достойная профессиональная карьера. И мне хотелось бы подчеркнуть, что наш уважаемый гость является экспертом и известным автором книг, посвященных истории, дипломатии, военному делу, политической истории своей страны. Эти книги опубликовались, они известны в научном сообществе. И мне очень приятно отметить, что наш коллега является в буквальном смысле слова нашим коллегой, потому что он читал лекции в университетах своей страны, посвященные дипломатической истории, истории своей страны.
The second important moment is that it is useful for our students. Today we will have a guest, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary Juan Genaro del Campo Rodriguez. He is not just a great diplomat, but he is also a writer. He is an expert that gave lectures on diplomacy, military affairs, and history. And for me, it is a pleasure to say that he is our colleague that gave lectures in Peru.
And actually, I don't know why I decided to speak in Russian. So please, I'm so sorry. And now I think 40 minutes for lecture, and then questions. You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Добрый день. Good afternoon to everyone. Простите, я еще не говорю по-русски, поэтому английский. First of all, I want to convey my appreciation to the University of the Government of Moscow for inviting me to do this presentation. And I also want to thank you all of every one of you for taking some of your important time with me so I can share you some things about Peru. So I hope that after these 40 minutes, you may have a general overview about my country, which I might say is a friendly country to Russia. First of all, I will start giving you an overview of Peru, what is the state of our economy, what are our geographical characteristics, what's our story, and share some of our culture. So let's start how this works. Okay, Peru, as you can see, is located in the western center of South America. It has about 3,000 coastal line facing the Pacific Ocean. It's a big country. It's number 20 in the world and is the fourth in Latin America and the Caribbean. It has close to 1.3 million square kilometers. It also has a population of 33 million people, which makes also the fourth most populated country in Latin America and the Caribbean, and number 44 in the world. Peru, as you can see in this picture, has 5 important neighbors, which are Colombia, Ecuador, Brazil, Chile, and Bolivia, to whom we are united through various integration mechanisms. Geographically, Peru is close to the geographical equator and has 3 natural regions. I will show you afterwards how it's composed its regions. No? The first one is the coast, the second one is the Andean mountains, and the third one, the biggest one, is the Amazonia. At the same time, the country possesses several altitude levels that rank from sea level, to more than 5,000 meters above the sea level. No? Thanks to these characteristics, Peru has 84 of the 104 climate zones in planet Earth, and is one of the 12 countries in the world with the greatest mega diversity. Okay, let's start with economy first. Peru is a country that opted for an open market economy, international trade, and foreign investment as tools for our development. So as more trade we have, as more investment we have, we think that we are going to develop more and more. According to the International Monetary Fund, our gross domestic product is $2,031.6 billion. So among 196 countries in the world, Peru ranks 49 in GNP. It is considered by international standards as an upper middle income country with a high human development index. Economically, we have the 3rd largest international reserves among all Latin American and Caribbean countries, with more than $74 billion, which represents 30% of our national gross domestic product. We are only surpassed by Mexico and Brazil. And within the world, we are number 32, surpassing even some more developed countries like Norway, Turkey, Australia, Sweden, or South Africa. That's in the rank of foreign reserves. I talked to you before about the market, that we like to have trade with the world. And we become, after being very relegated in the past, we become the 5th largest exporter among all Latin American Caribbean countries. In 2022, there were more than 9,000 Peruvian companies, big or small, that exported goods and services to around, for more than $64 billion to 168 countries worldwide. No? So you can see how we start increasing our exports. We came now to, it's almost $64 billion. We have decreased during COVID pandemic, but still we keep growing, and we hope our next goal is that in the year, by the end of this year, we are going to reach $70 billion in exports. No? Our main source of exports, 67% of total, is mining. Peru is a very rich country in mining. So we are the 2nd world producer of copper, we are the 2nd world producer of zinc, and we are the 3rd largest producer of silver in the world. We are also the 5th largest, we have the 5th largest gold reserves in the whole world. No, and in 2018, we rank as the 6th world gold producer. No, We are also between the 15 top iron producers, no? And we have also more than 13 billion cubic meters of reserves of natural gas. So that's a very good. We don't have oil, but we have gas and we have mining. And as I said before, that's our main income source, no? Now, the other 16%, another 60% of our exports belong to agro-industrial products. Last year, we export these products for almost $10 billion. And this is a miracle that happened in the last 10 years. 10 years ago, we maybe export $800 only, and now we reach $10 billion. So we become the fourth agro-exporting in Latin America and the Caribbean. We were in 2022, we were the largest exporter of grapes in the world. We become the largest exporter of blueberries in the world and the largest exporter of quinoa in the world. And the story of the blueberries is very interesting by those who like business. In 2015, 14-15, we export only $400,000 in blueberries. That's nothing, absolutely nothing. Doesn't mean nothing for a country. Last year, we export $138 million in grapes. So every year it has exponentially increasing, and we surpass countries that are bigger and they have more lands than us. So this is a very important story of success. In fact, I almost must say that to Russia, we are the #1 provider of avocado right now. So we are the second world producer of avocado, no? We also are the second world exporter of fresh and canned asparagus and canned olives, and also the third largest exporter in the world of artichokes, paprika, and avocado, no? The remaining 18% of our exports belong to non-traditional products, no? These products reach several markets all around the world, thanks to the reduce of trade barriers. Why we reduce trade barriers? Because we believe in open trade, so we sign free trade agreements with several countries in the world. So we sign a total of 21 trade agreements that include 56 countries. But we do not sign these agreements with the small countries. No, we sign with the superpower countries, the super economic power countries. We sign a free trade agreement with the United States, we sign it with China, we sign it with Japan, we sign it with Korea, we sign it with the European Union as a whole, with Australia, etc., etc., etc. And despite that, we are not in disadvantage. Always trade, we have the balance is favorable to us, no? We also have a controlled fiscal deficit and a public debt that does not exceed 35% of our gross domestic product, which is a level below the average of most emerging countries in the world, which is around 65%, and the Latin American average, which is 72%. We also hold the second highest credit rating in Latin America, and 2 rating agencies place us above investment grade with a stable outlook. Because then of all these indicators, Peru is one of the best Latin American countries in macroeconomic stability with a low inflation and a permanent growth. Let me now go and describe some of the regions of my country. The first one is the coast. It's a very narrow line. It has 3,000 kilometers of extension, but it's very narrow. But it's the most population region in the country. The coast has maybe about 60% of the total of the Peruvian population lives here. And the characteristics of this region, you will be amazed, is that it's a desert. A desert. It's like in some parts of the country, it looks like Arabia or Dubai. It has not green. So the civilization, the cities are built close to the rivers that come from the Andes. Because in the rest, it's completely dry and you can do nothing. No, you can do things. I will explain you later what we can do there. So this is a typical characteristic of the coast in Peru. Many extensions without population as well, sand and ocean. We have a variety of fauna, of birds, of animals of different species. It's very rich. We have national reserves in the coast that protect these species as well. No? Even we have oases like Arabia, incredible, but true. Now, what's the interesting thing? I told you before that we reached $10 billion in export of agro-industrial products. What happened? How can we reach this? And we are still growing and growing. That we start growing products in the desert, something that many people think it was going to be impossible. Usually our products were made in the valleys, in the small valleys, or in the Andean region. And then some smart guy say, no, we can do it in the desert. So with technology and the construction of represses, we start to build, to create fields in places where absolutely nothing grows. So this gives us a big advantage because the Peruvian coast is like Russia, is flat, no? And it has very large extensions, not occupied by people, so it can give us the possibility. And then we have very close ports just facing the Pacific Ocean that we can send the products to other countries. So this was very, very good for the country. This is another mention of a desert part that has been turned into green for cultivation. This is typical rivers that come from the Andes that irrigate also the coast. This, as I mentioned before, blueberries. We are the first producer in the world. Asparagus also, we are among the top world producer of this product. Artichokes, number one as well. Avocados in Peru are very big. We are second in the world, third in the world. This is another example of cultivation in the desert. So this before have absolutely nothing, but with technology we reached to do this. Now also we are a very rich country. We are among the top 5 fishing countries in the world, together with Russia, among Russia and China. So we have a very rich ocean, and we have a big capacity to catch fish and process them and sell them. Now the other region is the Andes. We call it the heart of Peru. Its high altitude is between 3,000 and 5,000 meters above sea level. It's because of it, it's a very cold area. It has a very dry weather, and because of altitude, it's very difficult to cultivate there. It's very difficult. So some only ancient products can be cultivated there, like potato. Potato, Peru is the place of birth of potato, of course. Quinoa and some other little things, but not as much as what we can do in the coast. Now, this region is absolutely different than Lima, than the coast, because it is green by nature. It has big lakes, it has snow. So it's like if you are in another world in the same country. So this is just an image of the Andes with our typical animals like la llama, the vicuña, the guanaco, for example, no? The alpaca. So we have this completely different than the coast, no? This is the Titicaca Lake, which is the highest lake in the world. It's about 4,600 meters above sea level, and it's very big. It's almost 9,000 square kilometers. These are another smaller lakes all around the Andean region. The trains that connect the regions. This is our national bird, the condor. It represents the national fauna. This is the mines. This is a copper mine that we have in the Andean, for example. All our mining comes from the Andean. As our agricultural products come from the coast, 100% of mining comes from the mountains, from the Andes. This is this is an iron mine. This is gas, for example, one of our plants of natural gas. And this is the last region of Peru. It's called Amazonia. The Amazonia has a particular situation. It's the biggest region in Peru. It's very big, very big. But for Russian standards, it's not big. But for world standards, it's big. It's bigger than, for example, France or all Spain, for example. It has more than 500,000 square kilometers. But it is unpopulated. It has very, very, very few people. So the density population equals that of a desert. No? So we have about maybe 10 people per square kilometer in the Amazon. It's practically nothing. It has some small cities, but it's unpopulated. We have here rich flora and rich fauna. But the most important thing for us in the Amazonia, for our future, what we're going to have for the future, is an important source for all of us, water. Because in the future, many countries are going to lack water. Peru, together with Russia, are among the 10 countries with big water reserves in the world. So we are lucky. We have a lot of water for the future. But many countries lack this. So which is the main source of water in the Amazonia is the Amazon River, which is is the biggest particular river in the world. And let me tell you something. The Amazon River is so big, that sometimes in width, believe me, it can reach 30 kilometers. 30 kilometers in width. Some parts, of course, will be like this place. Others will be bigger. I will have 500 meters, some 1 kilometer. But the widest part of the Amazon River is 30 kilometers. So it's a huge, huge river, deep river, and with a lot of water. And it burns from the Andes. It comes from snow peaks in the Andes. And the Amazon River crosses the Peruvian land. It goes deep into Brazil, and it goes out to the Atlantic Ocean. This is just typical views of the Amazonia. Now, it's not only the Amazon River. We have many, many huge rivers, for example, like the Putumayo and other more. So it's not only one main river. There are many rivers, and all of them are very caudalous. Just to show you some things of the Amazonia. We have like 25 native cultures that are all around the Amazonia. And we have also some non-contacted people. They decided not to contact the civilization, and we respect their will. We do not contact them because they don't want to be contacted. But there are other tribes that, of course, have been incorporated into civilization, but they keep their own traditions, their own languages, and they are protected by the state. No? But they are very few. I can say that the Amazon tribes are no more in total than maybe 120,000, that's all. It's not a big population. Non-contacted people, we don't know. We have some photos of them by air. We have tried to reach them that said, no, okay. And according to international standards, we cannot intervene. Unfortunately, those people, they die very young because they don't have access to medicine, they don't have access to technology, they don't have access to nothing because they decide by themselves not to do it. So their conditions are completely different than the rest of natives that live in this part of the Amazonia. This is an example of one of the rivers there. So we have fauna, believe it or not, we have dolphins. Usually people think dolphins are in the ocean, but no, we have dolphins in the Amazon River. The only difference is that these pinks are pink. These dolphins are pink, are not the color that the ones we have. And we have also different kind of fish, like the paiche. Then we have jaguars, we have monkeys. So it's very rich in fauna, absolutely rich in fauna. Now, let's try to make some history now. Let's talk about the old civilizations. Most people, and I think all of you that when you hear about, maybe someone did not hear about Peru, maybe most did. Usually when you hear about Peru and you talk about let's go to Peru, let's visit Peru, the first thing in your mind is the Incas, the Inca Empire. Everybody said Peru is the Inca Empire, the Inca Empire. Machu Picchu, okay, that's okay. But that's not so. The Incas are a very tiny chapter in Peruvian history. If we have a clock of 60 minutes, the Incas, and the story of Peru is 60 minutes, the Incas will be 1 minute of the total history of Peru. The Inca Empire only lasted 98 years, which is nothing. The Inca Kingdom have 200 years before, but it's not the same. So Peruvian registered story is 5,000 years old. And which is the first civilization? Peru, which is the characteristic? It's one of only 5 civilizations in the world that is considered as pristine. What I mean pristine? That civilization was developed completely independent from the influence of other civilizations. You know what I mean, no? So in other places, one civilization comes and make influence and another civilization develops. In the case of Peru, absolutely not. It was completely autonomous. Now, we will be surprised because it has many things in common with other civilizations, but amazingly, they grew completely separated. So the first one we have registered is this civilization called Caral. Caral was only discovered, it's amazing because story changes so much. We have a truth for one moment, for many years, and then we discovered new things and we said we were wrong. We thought that our civilization originated in the Andean region with a civilization called Chavin. But no, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, archaeologists discovered this place that was located in the coast. No, it has 5,000 years. It's called Caral. It was a religious civilization with a high development of techniques in agriculture. And this is one of the pyramids that was discovered after excavation that is made from stone, for example. So that's why it lasted for so many years. And this is a big complex in which each month they are discovering something new and something different. So the civilization in Peru started to develop at the same time as Egypt, as Syria, as India or China. So it's Peruvian is a very, very old civilization. This is another view of these pyramids of Caral that, as I said before, were unknown 25 years ago. There is another view. So this civilization lasted for about 2,000 years, and by reasons that nobody knows, it disappeared. It just evaporated. And then we have another civilization that we thought that it was the first one. It's called Chavin de Huántar, and it started more than 3,000 years ago. And we thought that this was the main civilization in Peru, and that from it irradiated to other regions of the country. So this is located in the Andean region as well, not in the coast, no. And also it was a civilization of religious and agricultural civilization. And this is called the Castle of Chavin, and it's very interesting because they could make this kind of constructions, no, of stone, and they have labyrinths inside the constructions, no. Now, when this civilization disappeared, many civilizations start to appear in the rest of the country. A lot of civilizations, some in the coast, some in the Andean regions. One of them is Mochica, called the Mochica. It was started 1,000 years before Christ. And this civilization was amazing. We discovered also 25 years ago the Señor de Zipan tomb. The Señor de Zipan tomb was the richest tomb discovered after death of Tutankhamun in Egypt. It was very rich, so many things with gold, really was amazing, was very, very, very impressive. So Señor de Zipan was one of the lords that ruled the Mochica kingdom, one of them. We don't know about the others. This is the only one we could find, but when we find it, we really got very impressed. So these people could do many things, were artisans, were experts in jewelry, and they were also warriors. They were very violent people. In fact, they were conquerors of closed kingdoms, no? This is, for example, a view of Señor de Zipan, and if you see, all this is made of pure gold, absolutely pure gold. That another example of their jewelry, mask, a crown, gold, everything is gold. Also pottery, ceramics. The next civilization was also in the north of Peru. They were called the Chimus. And also, they were very similar to the Mochicas in one way, but they have something special. They built this place. It's a city. It's a city made by mud, because there was no stone in that part of the country. So they made it by mud, and at its time, it becomes the largest city in the world. It has a population of 100,000 people, that by 2,000 years ago, it was a lot. The cities didn't have so much people before. So they could have this in this place, Chan Chan. I visit this place. It's very sophisticated, very interesting, with so many people there, no? This is another view, the entrance to this ancient city. This is the ruins inside the city. Unfortunately, when we have mud and we have rain, mud is going to disappear sooner or later, but we could recover these things. These are a temple inside, one of the constructions we can see with religious motives, no? Then, in the south of Peru, this is in the north of the coast of Peru. In the south of Peru, we have another civilization that were called the Nazcas. And the Nazcas were famous for two things. First, for their textiles, for their pottery, and then for the famous Nazca lines. I think you heard about the Nazca lines, no, that we have here, for example. They are huge. They are huge. And the only way that you can notice them, you cannot notice them when you walk. You cannot see them. You need an airplane to see all these things. They were some sort of calendar, for example, no? Developed by this old civilization. and as I said before, pottery, very sophisticated pottery that represents the ocean, that they're so close to the ocean and that they deities, no? In a way, I must say also that the one that discovered the origin of this pottery was a Russian investigator, Eugene Yakolev. Eugene Yakolev went to Peru in the 1920s, and he made some explorations. He became head of the department of exploration of the National Museum of Archaeology, and he wrote 4 very famous books regarding this Nazca culture. Again, so pottery. And then their neighbors, the Paracas. The Paracas were famous because of their textiles. Their textiles were perfect, so perfect that after 1,500 years, 1,500 years or 1,800 years, they still look like this, perfect shape. The colors have not disappeared, nothing. They are very good quality. They have also pottery, another textile. For example, you go to Zara, you buy something, and after 1 year, it's going to disappear. For this will last thousands or hundreds of years. So it was very interesting. And also they have a civilization of, they have a technology for medicine as well. And now these are what I mentioned you before, the Incas. The Incas started as a small kingdom in the city of Cusco, in Cusco. They were a little kingdom like the Romans. When the Romans they start in Roma, they were Romulus and Remus, they were very small, and they were small for hundreds of years. The Incas were small for not so much time, but for maybe 200 years. And they slowly start to conquer the neighbor kingdoms, start conquering them. They developed a very interesting military apparatus, no? And they start to expand and expand and expand. So in about 1420, 1430, they reach their peak. They conquer so much territories that they reach, for example, to this, they occupy this not only Peru, but part of Argentina, part of Bolivia, part of Chile, part of Colombia, and part of Ecuador. So it was the biggest empire in all Latin America, much bigger than the Aztecan, for example. No? And it was they were very sophisticated. They created a net of roads that connected all the empire, that when the Spanish arrived, they were so amazed that they compared these roads with the Roman roads. They got also a high level of capacity in architecture, because their constructions are monumental, made with very big stones. No? We don't know how do they transport them, how do they cut them, but we know that they did it. And that's very interesting. Here are some ruins of, for example, the Incas in the highlands of Peru. Fortress, temples. This is the fortress of Sacsayhuaman, which is very close to Cusco. It protected Cusco from any invasion. Now, this was much bigger, of course, much higher, but after the Spanish arrived, people start taking stones to expand the city of Cusco, and that's the reason why the fortress is now very, very small. This is another view of the fortress of Sacsayhuaman, for example. The design in zigzag is amazing for military defense at that time. This is Ollantaytambo, for example. I mentioned you before at the start that there is very, very difficult to make cultivation in the Andes because lack of land. So the Incas were very smart. They start to make terraces. So they cultivated in terraces. We find this same style in Bali, for example. If you go to Bali, Indonesia, you will find rice terraces. That same style, this civilization have no connection at all, but the Andean people start to make this in different places to gain space and to cultivate things there. There is another view of an Inca construction. And this is the city of Machu Picchu, which is the most emblematic city made by the Incas. When the Spanish arrived to the country, they never reached Machu Picchu. The last Incas stayed there until 1570, 1580 of our era. And when the last Inca was defeated, this place became lost, completely lost to the world. It disappeared, and within the centuries, it was completely covered in plants, in It becomes like a jungle. Nobody knew absolutely where it was. There was no record about it until in 1911 of the 20th century, it was discovered by an American explorer called Hiram Bingham. So everybody was amazed. So now it was completely clean, recovered, and is now the main attraction of Peru. This is located about 3,600 meters above sea level. Well, we have another view of Machu Picchu with a famous llama. Terraces for cultivation inside Machu Picchu. Well, this is a symbol of the Inca, how he was transported. He was like a demigod for its subjects. And this is a photo drawing of the greatest Inca called Huayna Cápac the Conqueror. He reaches so much conquest that he even went into the Pacific Ocean, and people think that he discovered the island of Pascua, for example, among other places in the Pacific Ocean. Now, what happened with the Inca Empire? The Incas make the same mistake that many civilizations did. Huayna Cápac, when he was dying, he decided to divide the empire between his two eldest sons, Huáscar and Atahualpa. Big mistake. Atahualpa, he gave him the north of the empire, and the south of the empire was given to Huáscar. But none of them wanted half. They wanted all or nothing. So what happened? Always they turned into war. These two brothers went into war. So it was a very, very bloody war, according to the chronists. Thousands of people died in this war. So the empire started to lose its capacity for administration and for keep unity. And in that moment, in 1532, a Spanish conqueror arrived to the country. So he did not find a country completely in chaos, a chaotic country. He arrived with a group of 160 Spanish only, and all the kingdoms that were dominated by the Incas went to his side. So it was a general uprising, and he defeated the Incas with the help of these native contingents of people, because people thought that Pizarro was going to free them from the Incas. Even Atahualpa, the emperor, killed his brother Huáscar, so Pizarro took advantage. So finally he executed the last Inca, Atahualpa, and the Spanish became the owners of Peru. We can say that, no? They conquered the country, and when they were secure, they start bringing more. No, sorry. I don't know what happened here. No, I don't know how to come back. I try to come back, but yes, go back. No, we're going forward. No. We're going forward. No. Well, sorry for that. I don't know what. Okay. So after 10 years, the Spanish consolidated their power in Peru, and Peru was turned into a viceroyalty, no? Ruled by a viceroy that represented the king of Spain. And this viceroyalty was the biggest in America. It practically occupied all of South America with the exception of Brazil, plus current Panama. So it was huge. And it lasted like that until the early 18th century, in which they realized that it was impossible to rule such a big extension of land from the city of Lima. The size of South America is practically the same as the size of Russia, for example. So you can have an idea. But from one city at those times, it was impossible. So they created two more viceroyalties, the viceroyalty of La Plata, which is now Argentina, and the viceroyalty of Nueva Granada, which is Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, and Panama, so the new republic. So those were three viceroyalties in South America after the big viceroyalty of Lima. And then they created, we have also at the same time in the north, the big viceroyalty of Mexico, for example. No? So this viceroyalty lasted for almost 300 years. Thousands of Spanish arrived into the country. They made the country their home, but there were many inequalities because the Spanish have all the privilege and the native people were relegated to a second place. So it started a revolutionary movement by the Indians, by the natives, against the Spaniards but the natives were defeated because they do not get the help of a very important segment of the population, what we call the Spaniards born in America, the Creoles. Okay, they were a very big segment of the population. And the other revolutions that started in Latin America were made by the Creoles, the descendants of the Spanish. Okay, they started a revolution taking advantage that Napoleon had invaded Spain and then put his brother Joseph in the crown of Spain. So we have independence moments in Latin America, and Argentina got free, Chile got free, and with this gentleman that was called José de San Martín. Okay, he was a general, a famous general of Spanish descent, no? But the Spanish that were born in Latin America, they feel they have nothing in common with their forefathers in Spain, absolutely nothing. And still we keep that mentality. We are the same blood, but they were foreigners for us, completely foreigners for us. So these wars were won by San Martín in the south, and in the north, which is Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, were fought, sorry, my English, by another liberator called Simón Bolívar. Okay, so these two guys fought at the same time against the Spanish, and they defeat the Spanish in the north and in the south. But after all the countries were liberated, the only country that remained under Spanish control was Peru. Peru could not get free. Why? Because most of the population did not want independence. They feel comfortable with the Spanish dominion. And also the center, the main power of the Spanish army power was located in Peru. So everything that some Peruvians tried to get rid of them was very difficult. So San Martín arrived from Peru with an expedition that was integrated by soldiers from Argentina and Chile to try to liberate Peru, and he declared independence in July 1821. We were declared an independent nation. But it was just a declaration. In fact, the Spanish were still very strong in many parts of the country, and he was incapable, even he made all his efforts to try to get rid of the Spanish. He could not defeat the Spanish. They were very, very strong. So what he did, he traveled to Ecuador, and he met with Bolívar. And he said, Bolívar, Simón, sorry, I can handle it. So please, can you come with your army? You please help us, because I cannot do it. So Bolívar said, yes, I go to Peru, but you go to your country. I will take care of this. I said, okay, no problem. So Bolívar came with a huge force of soldiers to Peru, and after 2 years, in 1824, he finally defeated the Spaniards in two big battles, which were the battles of Junín and the Battle of Ayacucho. Those were the last battles of independence that were fought in the Latin American continent. So that's when the real independence of Peru started in 1824. They signed a capitulation with the Spaniards. It was very generous. They said, those of you that wants to go back to Spain, you can go, but those that want to remain, you can stay in the country, you can keep your properties, and you can make your life as it was before, no problem. So some people decide to go back to Spain, and some people decide to remain in Peru, and that's what happened, no? So after we declared independence and Bolívar left the country, we became an independent state, but a very, very chaotic state. And it was the time of the caudillos. I think you heard about the name of caudillos. There were military leaders that they made coup among each other to gain control of the country. So it was a very chaotic time. And this lasted until the early 1850s, in which we have a very great president, a great estadist, Ramon Castilla. Castilla developed the Peruvian diplomacy, which is a very sophisticated diplomacy. He developed a very powerful navy. It's amazing, but a very great navy, a very good army. And he developed the protection of the region against the intervention of many other European countries, because some countries in Europe want to recover or have some influence in Latin American lands. For example, in 1861, Spain took again over the Dominican Republic. They conquered the Dominican Republic again. They took over Mexico. It was an expedition by the French, the Spanish, and the British, 1861, and they lasted there until 1867. Of course, the British and the Spanish retired, but the French stayed there for 6 years in a very bloody war to try to get control of Mexico with a puppet emperor called Maximiliano. So then we have intervention of American pirates in Central America. There were a pirate, for example, called William Walker, that with the support of the American government went and tried to conquer Costa Rica, Nicaragua, and many other countries. So we have a policy of solidarity with these people. It must say that with Castilla, we started our relations with, not with Castilla, with Castilla's successor in 1863, we started our relations with the Russian Empire. So this year we have 160 years of bilateral relations because our countries. We have an interesting story, maybe, I don't know if I have time, it's a very long story between Peru and Russia, even in those years. Our first ambassador came to St. Petersburg in 1873, for example. He was received by Tsar Alexander, and it was very interesting. So we may have also relations with China, with Japan, and with many other countries. No? So it was a very prosperous area. The country became very rich because of it started to export its natural resources. Then we have immigrations, big waves of immigration from Chinese, from Japanese, from Italians, from French, and in the early 20th century, Croatians. So the country became populated also by waves of immigration from Europe and Asia. And of course, we have also people from African descent that came with the Spaniards when they were slaves during the conquer. And San Martin, of course, liberate them. In 1879, we have a bloody war with Chile, which we lose and was terrible for our economy. During the early 20th century, during the first 20 years, Peru was ruled by democratic presidents. It was called the aristocratic republic because all the presidents were very high upper class aristocratic people that ruled the country. Then we have a government that last 10 years that was mesocratic, so middle class. And then we have problems with, again, coup d'etats and instabilities, and it lasted for many years. The last coup d'etat was in 1968. We have a military government that lasted for 12 years. This military government gave a big change because it turned Peru into a socialist country. It was also always a capitalist country, but it turned into a socialist country, some sort of socialist country. And at that time was the point of more in which Peru and the Soviet Union become very, very close allies, completely very close allies. And most of our military equipment was sold by the Soviet Union, and we reached a different foreign policy. Before we were very close to the States, but we reached a different foreign policy in which we approached the non-aligned movement, the Group of the 77, and open relations with all the countries of Eastern Europe, for example, which we did not have before. So in 1980, the military government is finished, and we recover democracy. In 1980, we recover democracy, and we keep like that. In 1992, we have an interruption when we have President Fujimori, because he make an auto coup. He keep himself as president, but he closed Congress. It was almost dead for 1 year. Fujimori made many mistakes, but many good things. What he did is he saved the country from terrorism, because Peru was fighting a very vicious, savage terrorist group called the Shining Path. The Shining Path was responsible of the death of 70,000 Peruvians and the destruction of infrastructure for $50 million. So Fujimori was capable of defeating them and recovering the economy. So the economy with his government is that this is a scenario good scenario for our economy, start increasing and increasing. And we keep his policies for the next years until 1921. And it was very good because poverty, for example, as you know, many Latin American countries are poor, and it's a big equality. Peru in the 1960s, maybe 56 or 60% of population was poor. In 2020, before pandemic, it was only 19% of the population that was poor. And extreme poor, people in extreme poverty, reduced to only 1.5% of the population. So it was very good because we incorporate many poor people into the middle classes. So it was a successful story because of the investment of the trade. In 2021, we elected a leftist government. Unfortunately, that government was a mess, a complete disaster. And that president tried to do the same as Fujimori and tried to make an auto coup, but it was controlled by Congress and he was sent to jail. And we still keep with this open market economy. No? Let's see what I can have. Okay, this is some of the cities of Peru, now to finish. This is Cusco. This was the former capital of the Inca Empire. As you see here, we don't have buildings, big buildings, because they try to keep the original style of the city. And the interesting thing is this city is a mixture of Spanish and Inca architecture. They mix both things. Sometimes you will find constructions in which the base, the lower part was made by the Incas and the upper part by the Spanish. This is another view of Cusco. These are, for example, original Inca stones, but the upper part is Spanish style. So they just mix it. This is the main plaza of Cusco. So it's a mixed mestizo architecture. This is an attraction in Cusco, the Mountain of the Seven Colors, which is very unusual. This is some kids from Cusco with original dresses. You see how they make the dresses. It's very colorful. And yes, you go there and you will find people like that. If you go to Cusco. This is another city called Arequipa. It's completely different because this is 100% Spanish style. This is a convent. Looks like a small town in Spain, for example, Arequipa. This is Lima. Now, this is completely different. This is a very huge city. It has more than 10 million people, 11 million people, and as we were talking about before, it is 200 square kilometers bigger than Moscow, believe it or not. So it's a very big city. This is the government palace with a president's guard. This is a tradition that we want to keep, the presidential guard. This is one big plaza in honor of San Martin, the liberator of Peru. Another view of this San Martin plaza. This is the palace of the bishop, and the other is the cathedral of Lima. This is one of all Lima, you can see there. This is the mayor's palace. The mayor of Lima is there. Another view of the mayor of Lima palace. This is the Park of Waters. This is very interesting. What do you see here? You will see the modern city, but in the center, you will see a pyramid. And that pyramid was made by a culture called Lima, the Lima culture, very ancient culture. So we keep all these things. We don't destroy them. We keep them. When you discover, you restore it and you keep them. And this reminds that you need to know your future. You need to know first your past. So this is a union of what you are now and what you were before. So that's what it means for us. This is another view of this pyramid in the night. This is another view of the modern city, crowded. The ocean, we face the Pacific Ocean, so we have many beaches. This is a golf course, another view of the ocean. Another view of the city. Like any other city in the world, nothing different, but it's modern. Now, just to finish, and with this I will finish, just for example, some of our culture, our dances in Peru. Each region develops its own dance, and they are very different among them. So for example, this is in the coast. One of these dances is called La Marinera. It's a very elegant dance, very nice dance, no? This is another view of La Marinera, no? They can also dance with a horse, caballo de paso. And this is the Afro-Peruvian dance. It's called Afro-Peruvian. We have the festejo, we have the landó, we have the toromata, by our people of African descent. These very colorful dances, no? You can see here. And this is from the Andes, this very colorful, the huayno, for example, no? Huaylas, the dance of the scissors, la danza de las tijeras, and this is from our Amazonia. So, typical dances from the Amazonia. And that's all what I can say. The time is very short, so I hope that you like this explanation. Even my English is not as perfect as I would want. Thank you. If you have any questions.
Уважаемый господин посол, меня зовут Мария, я учусь на направлении международные отношения, 3-й курс. У меня вопрос в следующем. Какие ключевые направления торгово-экономического сотрудничества между Москвой и Перу определяются на современном этапе? Спасибо.
Dear Ambassador, Your Excellency, I am Maria from the Faculty of International Relations. What are the prospects for cooperation in the trade area between Peru and Russia?
Okay. We are very good commercial partners. Unfortunately, we do not reach the level that other Latin American countries have, even smaller countries than us. There is a big trade with a big country like Brazil, for example. It's huge trade between Brazil and Russia. And there is a big trade between, for example, Argentina and Russia. And I was surprised that two small countries like Paraguay and Ecuador has also a very significant amount of trade. Most of the flowers that you have in Russia, they come from Ecuador, for example. And they export just in flowers $1 billion per year. So Peru and Russia in 2015, we signed an agreement to become partners, strategical partners. That's a very good step, strategical partners. But we do not take advantage of this declaration because we could not advance in our trade. Why? Maybe because Peruvians and businessmen, because they depend on the private sector, not the state. The state does not do nothing in this. It's the private sector. You give them the tools. You sign this kind of partnerships with Russia. You try to, maybe we can reach a free trade agreement in the future with a Eurasian Economic Union. We can do many things. But if the businessman is not interested in selling or investing, that's going to be a problem. So the same happens with Russian businessmen or Russian traders. They look Peru, they don't know it well. So they say, okay, I don't know what I can do. But despite of all of that, in last year we reached our highest level of trade, $850 million between Peru and Russia. Of course, we need it to increase. As I said before, we become the #1 provider of avocados in Russia, but it's not enough. We export seafood, incredible, but many seafood that you eat here comes from Peru. It's one of the main products that we sell. Russia sells machinery, for example, equipment, different kind of equipment. So we can increase, but now the situation is that more maritime routes, you know what happened, they have been cut because of sanctions. Usually, all the products from Peru to Russia came before through Amsterdam port or Rotterdam port. Now it's impossible. So during this situation, it's going to be complicated. But as I said before, even so, in 2022, we get our record. But the record of this $850 million, maybe 70% was of Russian products sold into Peru. So we have to keep trying, and I hope that this year or the next year, we can recover the levels and surpass the levels that we have in 2022. No?
Уважаемый господин посол, спасибо вам большое за такую полезную лекцию, было очень интересно. И, как известно, Лима и Москва – это два крупных города с региональным статусом, в связи с чем возник вопрос, как вы оцениваете перспективы развития сотрудничества между двумя столицами? Спасибо.
Dear ambassadors, thank you for your lecture. It was very interesting. As you know, Lima and Moscow are large cities with the regional status. How do you assess the prospects for further development of cooperation between the capitals of Russia and Peru?
You know, that's something that I would like it very much, very, very much, because we have to learn many things about Moscow. I was talking before I came to this class with a rector, and we were exchanging some ideas. And I mentioned how with will and with capacity, you can change completely a city. if you compare the Moscow you are living now with the Moscow in the 1990s, this is a completely different world. You have a very secure city, very well illuminated city, very clean city, very organized city. On the opposite, Lima was clean, organized, and everything, but it became, with so much immigration that the city receives, we have a third of the country living in the city, so it's an overcrowded city. So we have problems of crime, of sanitation, of overcrowded things. So even for security, you have a very good system of security with cameras in the city, and you don't find crime here. Maybe almost nothing. You're very secure. You can go 3 o'clock in the morning with your cellular phone, and nobody's going to rob you, because the center of the city is very, very secure. We need that in Lima. We don't have in all the districts, in all the city, things like that. So there are many issues that we can learn from Russia, from the government of Moscow. We should know, and we have the government of Russia has an Office of International Cooperation, and we are seeking ways to find some agreement that we can receive some inputs of how to administrate properly a city as you have done with this beautiful place.
Уважаемый господин посол, спасибо за столь прекрасную лекцию. Меня зовут Ирина, и я студентка 3-го курса международных отношений. Мой вопрос следующий. 20 февраля 2022 года состоялась двухсторонний круглый стол «Цифровая трансформация. Россия-Перу». Этот цифровой стол был посвящен вопросам интеграции современных цифровых технологий в медицинское образование и практическое здравоохранение Республики Перу. Как вы оцениваете результаты и перспективы продвижения в Перу российских высокотехнологичных продуктов в сфере энергетики, космоса, телекоммуникаций, информационной и других высоких технологий?
Dear Ambassador, thank you for your great lecture. On the 20th of February this year, a bilateral roundtable digital transformation Russia-Peru was held. It was dedicated to the integration of digital technologies into different spheres, including healthcare and medical education. How do you estimate the results of this meeting? And what are the prospects for the promotion of Russian high-tech products in the field of energy, telecommunications, medicine, and space research?
Okay, thank you for your questions. First of all, I will start with the prospects of receiving Russian technology or inputs. One thing that I am very interested in getting from Russia, for example, and we should work in that. We are building we're starting to build 6 metro lines, metro. And Russians are champions in metro. Nobody defeats Russians in metro technology. So we will. I think that one thing that we can do in the near future is to try to that Russians participate in the bidding for the constructions. Now we have constructed 2 lines, but there are 4 more. In the bidding for the construction of the 4 new metro lines in Lima, and also to sell us the trains, the wagons, and all these. Also trains, traditional trains. You are very advanced in trains. And the problem in Latin America, and Peru is no exception, is that we lack a good service of train services. And we need trains to connect one extreme of the other of the coast, for example, or connect all the extension of Lima. So in that we can receive a lot. We can have a lot of things to do with Russia. But again, Russians should be interested. There are many things that businessmen should explore in Peru, and we have in December last year we meet with 60 Russian businessmen. They represent different Russian corporations. And we give them an explanation of all the investment projects in the country, energy, transport, health, everything that they could invest. And we give a big dossier to each of those companies to see if they were interested. But again, this depends on them. because this is worked by the private sectors, not by the governments. So, the governments put the bid on, yes, and the governments approve the bid. But the ones that have to make the offer is the private companies. I think that most companies, the railroads and those things that you have are private. I don't know if all belongs to the state or are private here. For example, Sapsan is private or belongs to, yeah, you see? So things like that, no? Yes. Now, about the question that you told about this meeting held on February the 20th between Peru, I must confess, I was not aware of it. So I don't know about the results. I has not been informed about it. So I'm sorry I cannot give you a reply about it because I have no idea. This is the first time I knew about this. Thank you.
Здравствуйте, Ваше Превосходительство. Я студент второго курса международных отношений Матунов Сергей. У меня возник такой вопрос. Вы работали во многих странах, в дипломатических миссиях. Какое у вас впечатление о России?
Dear Ambassador, you have worked in many countries. What are your impressions about Russia?
I always say, I don't know Russia. I've been in Ekaterinburg, I've been in Volgograd, in Nizhny Novgorod, but now I don't know all Russia. I would like to know St. Petersburg like 10 times or 11 times, yes. But my main knowledge is in Moscow, and since the beginning, when I arrived to Moscow, when I walk in the streets, I walk through history. When I walk through your streets, I walk through art. Every construction that you have to appreciate it. Every construction, every building has a story and has its art. So it's a very place to be in. It's a very comfortable city. As a foreigner, I should tell you that. I'm telling you absolutely the truth. It's not because I am the ambassador and I have to say good things. No, I'm just saying the truth. It's a city with history, a city with beauty, a city with organization, many places to go, many places to visit, very good restaurants, very good bars, amazing museums. Very few cities in the world have the quantity of museums that you have. So the concerts and everything, so my impression is completely positive, no? Wonderful.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Уважаемые коллеги, это, по-моему, урок, прекрасный урок того, как надо любить свою страну. На самом деле, мне кажется, вот это очень важно для всех нас, и, конечно, для студентов, для преподавателей. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you.